everyone. Unfortunately, we had a technical difficulty. Hello, everybody. I am back. Shelly and I are back. I am so sorry about the technical difficulty earlier. I'll be sure to update this live stream to reflect the old link. But I'm so glad you guys are here, and it looked like a lot of you have made it back, and so happy, so incredibly happy. Hope you all are doing great. We are here. It is time to be with Mr. Bach. Love Mr. Bach. And today it is up to you, dolls. It is choose your own adventure time. If you are studying a movement with a teacher at your conservatory on your own for funsies, this is your chance to get direct, customized practice advice. So Shelly and I will demonstrate some ideas depending on the movement you choose. This is a great chance for an educational experience. Please don't request a suite you want to hear. It's not going to be a concert format. It's going to be practicing, woodshedding away, and direct advice for you guys in your practice time. And quickly before I start, if you are in need of a cello teacher and you're interested in taking virtual lessons right now, Shelly and I have room in our studio and we're looking for students. So you can send me an email and you can find that. That will be in the video description after this live stream. It's thecellodoll@gmail.com. And send us some info about yourselves, how long you've been playing, what kind of repertoire you're on. We teach all ages and levels. So if you're looking for something to spark your summer, send us a message. Okie dokie. Let's get to Bach. So as I am going, please send a request in the chat. Type and say what suite you'd like to hear or you're working on. And okay. So before we started, I did get a request for Bach 5 Sarabande. So we're going to start with the Sarabande for suite number 5. All right. So Bach 5 Sarabande. And I also did perform the entire 5th suite recently for my recital. So if you want to see the entire Bach suite, suite number 5, you can find that on my YouTube channel. All right, Sarabande. Great. I love this movement so much. Very special movement. So immediately, a couple thoughts about this Sarabande. Accidentals. We have some notes that are not in our key signature, especially right off the bat. That's a B natural. That's not in our key signature. We're in C minor where we have flats. So in this Sarabande, Bach suites in general, but especially this Sarabande, think of these accidentals as expressive because the B, it goes to our tonic of C. So these accidentals are kind of like emotional tugging. Bach is rubbing friction with the tonality here. So I really encourage you to look at these accidentals kind of, yes, of course, we got to play the notes Bach wrote, but especially as a way of expression. How are you going to tune it? Is that B natural going to be high and nudging the C? How are you going to play that? So that's one thing. The challenge of the saraband is all of the string crossings. There's a lot of string crossings in this movement. So every time you cross strings, smear it with the bow and play a double stop. So if I'm playing this, and when you practice this, use a healthy full tone. You might want to be more quiet later, but I would. So right there. Next. Okay, and then. And by doing this, you guys are seeing how small of a string crossing you can get away with. And if your bow is going wild every time you have to switch the string, your tone isn't going to be able to resonate and build. So I would go through the whole thing like that. Also helps with the tuning. You get an added bonus. And then, see there, I took away some of the double stop. I can do it better. And that's gonna really help these string crossings to feel easier. So start with double stops, gradually take it away, and make sure you have a quiet arm, nothing too crazy. Also experiment with the string crossings in your wrist. I don't want to play the same measures every single time. So you gradually take away the blending. And honestly, in Bach, if there's a little bit of a hang between the string crossing and you get a little tiny hint of a double stop, that's absolutely fine. I know cellists who actually do that regularly in Bach. And so that would be my big recommendation for this was Sharon. This was a special request from Sharon about the Bach Saraband Suite number 5. And Sharon, if you're here, if you're watching right now, please let me know if you have any specific questions about the Saraband. But those are two big thoughts: the challenge of the string crossing, and then really using the accidentals as a means of expression. And don't be afraid in this one too to drill the intonation between the big intervals. There are some leaps in this saraband that are really big, especially as you get to the climax, like that's an octave. Go back and forth. And really make it comfortable and smooth. And then there's some ones down. Okay, so look out for those big intervals and try to make them smooth, even though you do have you might have a jump with the hand and a string crossing. Try to just kind of oil that rusty hinge until it feels comfortable. So don't be afraid to just focus on 2 notes for a bit. And I believe we have to go on to another tip. I want to make sure we get to everything. So, all right. Yes, someone asked if it's okay to ask questions. Yes, this is your time to request a specific suite, and we will give you some tips on how you guys can practice. Okay. Choosing to play with or without scordatura for the 5th suite, which we're on. So that's a really good question. When choosing a suite, do you recommend you start from the easier movements or stick to one suite and play it entirely? Well, these are both great questions about Bach in general. So thank you. These are from Keisuke. I hope I'm saying that right. Thank you for your questions. So for the 5th suite, do you play it with scordatura? Do you play it without? My choice was easier because Shelly has a really annoying A peg. So for me to tune it easily for practicing, not great. So I've learned the suite without scordatura. And for those of you who don't know scordatura, Bach actually wrote this with the A string tuned down to a G. So this was actually another example of how Bach was ahead of his time. You'd actually tune your A string down to a G natural, and that's how he composed the suite. Since then, there has been, most editions have 2 versions of the 5th suite, one with the normal tuning, which I have learned, just the strings as they are. If you are playing just the 5th suite in a performance, might be nice to do the scordatura and do an homage to Bach. But if you're playing a recital and you have to play Bach and then you have to play a sonata and then maybe a showpiece or Bach and a concerto, you have to go backstage and you have to tune and your cello's like, what are you doing to me? If you're programming it with other material, it would be easier to do it without the scordatura. I hope that helps. In terms of how should you learn a suite? Again, it depends on how much time you have and your performance circumstances. It's great to learn the entire suite because a lot of the movements come back. He puts like little Easter eggs and little hidden quotes from other movements. There was actually one my teacher pointed out to me. Oh, I don't know if I can remember where it is, but he quotes the saraband somewhere else. And a lot of the movements follow the same chord and harmony structure. So if you learn one movement, the harmonies and the keys you go through, they're throughout the other movements too. But let's say you're playing a wedding and the betrothed want just a couple movements, like 5 or 10 minutes of light cello music, then just learn some of the first suite. There are situations where you might play 1 or 2 movements only, but just kind of for the sake of the educational value of the suite, it would be amazing to just learn it all together. Let me see if I can show you guys an example of how some of the movements do connect. So if we were to look at, let's go to a different suite. How about Oh, hello. We have a new viewer today on the live stream. Hello. So here's a great example. If we go to the sixth suite, this Allemande opens like this. So we have 1 D major, nice and sunny. Then, 5 is coming, A major. Back to 1. So we went to D, A, back to D major. If we go to the sarabande, same thing, 1, A major, 1. This is a very small example, but it happens on much bigger scales as well. So that's an example and a reason for why playing the entire suite as opposed to just one movement of it could be just a great learning experience too. Is anybody else wanting to request a suite? Maybe you're studying it at school or working on it with your teacher. If not, I might pick some of the more popular suites to talk about. Excuse me, but if you are working on a suite and you would love some like customized tips, please put it in the chat. So until I get a request, I'm going to go to the Prelude, because the Prelude of the G major, the most famous piece for cello probably ever, because I've gotten some requests in general about this. How do you practice the Bach G Prelude? Well, kind of similar to what I was saying with the sarabande, you can start by playing, everyone knows the opening. Take the first 3 notes. Next measure, first 3 notes. And if we keep going. Okay, so these chords, if you can get those hand shapes comfortable, you're learning the entire thing, and then you just got to add the string crossings. So you can think of it as your morning Bach yoga. You get up, you stretch. You can musically stretch too with these chords. And then the rolling stops for a little bit. Then then we have some scalular. And then we kind of get more. And then we're kind of at the bottom of the first page. So you can also kind of feel the tension and the release of the harmony. And that's another great reason to find these kind of chords in Bach. And how can you tell if something's a chord in Bach? Well, if you have 3 notes across different strings, one hand shape. So one hand shape, 3 strings, that's your chord. Do you hear that tension? If you don't even know music theory, you can kind of hear that little, it's because you have an F sharp and a C natural together. Fun fact, this is called the tritone or the devil's interval. Back then they thought that was actually kind of evil to play those 2 notes together. This is more like before Bach and kind of medieval music. They avoided using that harmony. So if we're feeling the chord progression, we've gotten out of the tension, then more tension. Now we're okay. And knowing and being familiar with this can influence your bowings, your dynamics. So finding these chords is great. And then when you want to add the bow back, that's not a technical term, the string crossings. I'm a professional. You still want to feel that. And this is a great example of a piece where you can kind of smear the strings to kind of create this ringing chord, because that's what this is. It's written out chords. That's not to say anything, small about this piece. It's a brilliant piece, but it is chords. So it's beautiful to still hear the other notes ringing. So starting with the chords, you're already going to feel comfortable with blending these notes together. So don't think of it as, I need to be super clean here with my string crossings. Think of it as blending the notes together. Here comes the tension. More tension. Release. Okay? So even if you don't have a lot of music theory knowledge, you guys have ears. And those ears can be such a powerful tool, especially in something like Bach. So really play slowly and really listen. If I were to play verses, you can tell that those 2 notes together they clash in a tense way. And then in the next measure, a G and a B, they ring together beautifully. So really trust your ears. If something is a tense moment, it's dramatic to make it a little louder. So you really lean into the tension, and then a little softer. Oh, we're okay. Everything's fine. Everything's resolved. Okay. So let's go on to, and the fun thing with this prelude and all the Bach preludes, so this is a tip in general for all the preludes. They're a prelude. They're not a dance. The other movements are dances with certain pulse, like is beat 1 strong. In the case of the saraband, you lean into beat 2. So it's kind of an unusual dance in that way. Not the prelude. The prelude, you can be free with your timing, and it's kind of like the intro to the suite. It is a pivotal part of the suite. It's very important, but it is like an introduction. So instead of you would be so bored if I played that way. Every single note, super even, Steven. Every note, even. No! Mm-mm-mm. Decide which notes you want to give a little more love in the preludes. So, think about what is changing, what notes are moving, right? There's a constant G and D going on. Actually, sorry, a constant G. So we don't need to bring that out a whole bunch. So think about, well, maybe I should bring up the upper voices. If the G is staying the same, the G is like a drone. Maybe bring up the notes that change. But of course, you want a big G to start. So. And then, ooh, we get new material. We get a scale. Okay, so by going through all of these steps, you are doing what's called, you're building your interpretation. And by building an interpretation, by really looking into the music, that's a great part about being a musician. I mean, look, there are so many different ways to play Bach. And this prelude, it's bright and happy. It's in G major. There's a lot of 16th notes, and you can think, I want to play this fast, and I want to bring out my favorite parts, and that ending part, I want to do an accelerando because it's exciting. Okay. But when you really get into the music and you really ask yourself, why did Bach put this note here? I mean, you can't do that for every single note. Oh my goodness, you would never leave your practice room. But if you really get into, well, he has this G going on for a long time, but the upper notes are pretty. When you start like really going on a scavenger hunt and looking and, going through and finding special things, I think that's when you realize the magic of Bach. And this isn't me, this is from working with my recent teacher. He really opened my brain into seeing music this way. And I really think that that kind of care you can do for all composers, but this is just a big example for the Bach G Prelude. I hope that helps. I'm going to keep going with this prelude. For those of you who might just be joining us, we're working on Bach. If you have a specific movement you want to hear, please leave a request in the chat so you can get customized tips for when you practice. I see some cellists here that I know you're a cello player. Kiko, do you have a Bach, a movement of Bach you're working on? I'm just kidding. If you don't want to, that's okay. But it's a great chance to get some practice ideas. So I'm going to go on to the second half, where we have a lot of these scales. The rolling pattern goes away. So we have a big scale. Second half. What is that? What just happened? E flat. Remember what I said about accidentals in Bach? Kind of, that should cue something in your brain going, oh, something kind of weird and fun is happening. When you have an accidental like that, right there in E flat, he has three, well, technically it's two half steps, and then, oh, we're fine. Everything's cool. We're fine. Cool. But, bring out that moment. And whenever, this is my personal choice, whenever I'm playing a piece from this era and I have a lot of scales, I like to think of it as you're kind of searching for something. Like if you think about someone, let's say, who's lost in a house and they see a door and they run up to the door, oh, but it's locked. But then down the hall, there's another door and no, that one's locked too. Better go around the corner and oh, this one's open. So I kind of like to imagine that when I have all these constant running scales. That would be a really cool music video. I'll put that in my brain to simmer for a little bit. So we have this scale going up to this big E flat moment. Nope, not quite. Oh, now we're out of the scales and we're going to go somewhere else. So I'm going to do that one more time. I'm going to try to bring that out. Again, our interpretation. And I'm going to keep my yap shut. So. C sharp. More accidentals. So you can really you can bring those out, lean into those. Oh, thank you. Graham Ritter wrote, love to talk about interpretation and musical decision. Thank you. I think it's very important. And I'm a big music theory nerd, so I love this kind of stuff. We have another question, not Bach specific, but what was the first suite you learned in your cello career? Well, like most cellists, this one, the Bach G major, and the this is a great suite to start with because you start getting more into the world of harmony. And again, Bach really influenced the trend for classical music and how classical music was written. So this happened to be my first one. And also, as the suites go on, they get more complicated, kind of in terms of technique, and his use of harmony gets a little more adventurous. So, also, the suites kind of, it's interesting, they kind of go through this own like internal maturity in a way. It's like the suite, it's like right now we're, a fun, life loving child just running around and playing. So this one, very common for this to be first suite. Another popular first suite for some cellists is the Rager, Max Rager. Those are some good suites as well. That's another popular one. Very Bach inspired as well. Excuse me. Okay. And I do have to say, there has been a doll here who has been super supportive. I just want to give her a shout out. Young A. Clement. She, let me see. I'm so sorry. They wanted some vibrato tips. And I'm holding off because I have a great vibrato plan coming soon. You guys are actually hearing about it for the first time. So I don't want to give too many vibrato tips right now because it is coming. You guys, it's like my number one request, and I promise it will exceed just one tip video. Hint, hint. You guys are going to get some vibrato-filled content soon, so don't worry. Okay, so we go through these scales. We got to my C sharp. Then we're back to our scales. Everyone's favorite part. So what do we do with that? Thank you guys for contributing in the chat. I'm just making sure it's not a question. So for that part, after the scales, we have this part. It starts with a pattern. And what I recommend you do for practicing this is just take out the A string. Don't play the A string. And then you kind of start hearing what the melody is and what you might want to bring out. Because, for example, we start off. He repeats that 3 times. So you don't want to play it the same exact way because that's boring. So do you want to crescendo throughout? Do you want to do like a call and response echo? That's entirely up to you. So that's something. And then So then he's repeating a part to help you move back down. Chromatic city, chromatic, bunch of half steps in a row. Accidentals everywhere. Again, big moment, lots of tension happening. So, of course, it's very typical. We love to go through that part and crescendo up to the top and then bask in the glory. And so that part is, I love that part. So what do we do about the A string? Because the A string, I tell all my students, you just look at the A string and it vibrates and it plays itself. Like you barely have to touch it. It just rings. It's so loud, our A string. And you don't want to hear, so I'm actually going to play it in a way you don't want to do this part. So, I mean, you just heard like an A string for, I don't know, like 5-10 seconds, like 4 bars, just an A string. So you have to be really careful. And this is where balance and weight distribution is super important. So what I like to do is I lean into the D string and I touch the A string with the tip of my hair. So I'm not flat. I kind of scooch and get the bottom strands. You can really see it here. I kind of lean back with my fingers here to tilt the hair. And so a great exercise is to really exaggerate it, like do too much. So that's something I like to do. You start with too much and then you gradually go back until you find something you like. Because it can be hard to kind of push and push and push and push, and you never really know where the ceiling is for this idea. So really exaggerate it, like forte and then pianissimo on the A strings. So don't do it backwards. Okay, and then so I slowed down the tempo. I really exaggerated. Okay, and then we're going to lean, take a little less. Okay, and also bow length. I'm using more bow on the D string and then a tiny, tiny bit on the A string. So I'm almost thinking of it as I'm really doing this linearly to really bring out the D string. And then you get to the top. Okay, so I see we have Sharon who joined us. Sharon, I covered the Bach saraband for you actually at the beginning of the video because I leave up these streams so you guys can go watch them if you missed them. But while you're here, Sharon, if you have any specific questions about the saraband, please tell me. I gave some general tips for you, but if you have any specific questions, Sharon, please put them in the chat, and I would love to answer you for some of the remaining time we have. I actually started late, my dolls. I had a technical difficulty, so we're going to go a little past 7. Okay. Cool. So while Sharon's brainstorming, does anyone have another sweet movement they want to hear? No. Why not? Just kidding, guys. I'm just kidding. A bit of the prelude from number 5, gladly, sure. Prelude numero 5. All right. So, Grand Ritter, were you more interested in the opening intro or the fugue? Because there's 2 big sections in this prelude, which is why it's my favorite, because it's so unique. It has a fugue. It's the only movement out of all the suites that has a full-fledged fugue, not just a moment of counter melody and a mini fugue. Like there's a whole fugue in here. So Grand Ritter, would you like to hear the intro or the fugue? Or the big... Oh, 6. I meant 6, he says. This, is that the one you're thinking of? So I'm going to go to 6. So the 6th suite, the prelude is really special. Yay, 6th suite. Okay. This movement, yada ba 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 ba, this rhythm that's going on everywhere. So if I were to really bring it out, it's not a good spot because of the repeating D. Here, it's kind of like a jig. This 1 2 3 1 2 3 1 2 3. It's a rhythm that's frequently used in the jig, and the jig is a dance that is usually at the end. Well, it is at the end of every of the suites. Every suite of Bach ends with a jig. So this is kind of fun that he hides this rhythm. I mean, he doesn't hide. It's like blatantly everywhere. He puts it in the prelude. So you have to think about when you want to bring that out versus not. Because if you're too much, but it's going to sound beady, too beady. So think about when you want to bring out that rhythm. I think something like, I think that's a little more lyrical, but something with the repeating, that's the jig rhythm. Sorry. That's the jig rhythm. Sorry. Long, short, long, short. So I like to bring out the changing note here. I like to give it a little extra so you can hear the notes rising. Okay, so you can look out for that rhythm, and it happens later. Here. That's another place. So check out those places and see if you can make them feel buoyant and bouncy like a jig. And then think about the places you want to be more lyrical too, because contrast is good for something. I mean, almost this entire prelude is made up of eighth notes. So any variety you can add when the rhythm is so constant is a good idea. And I want to get to the spot that's hardest for most people in this suite, the E string. Oh, we have a question from Sharon about scordatura. Yes, Sharon. You know, we have about like 8 minutes, so I think I'm actually going to switch Garen Ritter and go to Sharon's question. So, Sharon, I personally have done the fifth suite without scordatura. I talk about that a little bit in the beginning of the stream, but you bring up a great question. How do you read scordatura? You know, so let me tell you really quickly how to read it if you want to play it with scordatura. So how in my edition, I don't know if you have this edition, the Baron Writer, the note you see is what your left hand plays. If the tuning was regular. So I just said that in an awful way. I'm so sorry. Sharon, the notes are not the sounding pitch on the A string. What you are playing with your finger, you will not hear in the ear because your A string is going to be tuned down a whole step. So what's actually written in the scordatura part and we know that's not how it goes. But what you see in the part is the location of where your fingers go. So that's where your fingers have to land. But what you will hear is so you'll hear the true version, but your string is tuned down lower. And unfortunately, my A string is I'm having issues with my peg right now. So I don't want to do it really quick. Unfortunately, I'm sorry. I'm hoping to get it fixed. But I hope that helps. So what you see in the scordatura part is where your fingers land. It does not represent what notes you hear. And this only applies for the A string because that's the only one you tune. Now that makes sense. Yay, Sharon. You know what you could try, because I have a feeling your ear was getting confused because you see a D and you're like, I'm not playing a D, I'm playing a C. So what you could do is, if your ear is really getting thrown off, just as a warm-up, do it maybe once per practice session. Play it with regular tuning. So you feel comfortable putting the finger there, and then do the scordatura tuning, do all the intonation work, all of these things. But just for the sake of like seeing a note and hearing the note you're expecting, it might help to do that once. Don't do it too often because you might get more confused. No, but that might help. I hope that helps you and that makes more sense. Did you have any musical questions about the saraband other than the scordatura, Sharon? I talked a little bit about it, but there are actually, I'll answer your questions if you have them. But one way, a couple ways you could interpret the saraband is if you want to follow the rules of the saraband dance, which is beat 2 is the strongest beat. We're used to having 1 as the strong beat, but not in the case of the saraband. So, and you'll actually see that's where Bach puts a lot of those special accidentals that aren't in our key. So 1 and 2. 1 and 2. 1 and 2. So you can play it that way where you have a slow but moving tempo. That doesn't make any sense, I'm sorry. Like a leisurely walking tempo. And you can really adhere to the dance feel of it. So maybe a little faster. Another way you can think of it as this kind of ethereal, holy, like wandering, lost. It's a very unique saraband. A lot of the sarabands, let me check before I make a mistake in what I'm about to say. I want to check what's the okay, so this one, okay, well, I don't know, I think the saraband here, it's just really special because compared to the others, the rhythm is much more simpler. It's eighth notes and quarter notes and one dotted half note, eighth notes, quarter notes. And the rhythm is pretty consistent too. 1 and 2 and 3. 1 and 2 and 3. It's okay. But what makes it so special, the story it tells, the voices he's able to make, and it's one of those things where it looks it's complex because it looks so simple. It's complicated because it seems straightforward, but it's really not once you start really digging into it. Sharon says, I think of it as a dance for a funeral. That's a great image. Beautiful. Thank you for sharing. So The other way you can think about it is what? No, that can't be true, right? But what if it is? So another way you can think of it is by a journey that kind of goes longer than the feeling of 3 and the second beat. I kind of see it as a longer story, and that's not to say dances can't have a longer story to them, but I really like to think on a longer scale, and it's a little bit more of a romantic contemporary interpretation. um I don't always keep the same tempo in this saraband. I add some rallentando, I stretch certain notes, so that's my choice. But and I do adhere to bringing out the second beat, so you can take these two ideas and kind of merge them, which I like to do. Again, there's so many different ways to play Bach, and I'm so happy you guys are so interested in this. Do let me know if you like this idea of kind of, I like it. I think it's fun where I take your guys' suggestions. I can talk about what I'm working on, sure, but these are meant to be very helpful for you. I see Chelly every day. I work on myself every day, but I also want to really help you guys out. So if you like this idea, let me know in the comments. The chat, I believe, closes after the stream, but you can let me know in the comments what you think about this, like, pretty interactive model. I really like it. I think it's fun, and it'll help me brainstorm for future streams. And thank you guys so much for watching. If you're new to the channel and you haven't been here before, welcome. I would love for you to subscribe and become one of my dolls, and we can hang out on our monthly streams at the end of each month. The last Tuesday, we do a live stream. And I said this before, if you are looking for cello lessons, Chelly and I are doing virtual lessons, and we have some openings in the studio. And if you're interested, you can email me, thecellodoll@gmail.com. And I also do have a Patreon where you guys can get VIP content. And one of those pieces of content are lessons that are technically a little cheaper because you get a lot of content on top of the lessons. So I do have lessons on my Patreon as well. And I'm seeing in the chat that you guys like this format. So, oh, good. I'm happy. I'm really happy you guys like it. And thank you guys so much for being here today. And I'm sorry about the technical difficulty before. I will go ahead and fix it. So you guys can easily find this stream again if you need it. So thank you guys. It was great to work with you all. And when I hear from you guys that I help, that really means a lot to me, because that's what these are for. And that's what I really want to do. So thank you guys so much. Have a great night, morning, afternoon, wherever you guys are watching from. And we'll see you guys soon. Bye.